Hello, dear students. Today we are going to take up the Rattrap by Selma Lagerlöf. She was a Swedish writer and had won a Nobel Prize in Literature in 1909. A universal theme runs through all of her stories, a belief that one can awaken the innate goodness in a human being through love, understanding, and affection. This story, set amidst the mines of Sweden, is told somewhat in a manner of fairy tale. The rat trap is basically a metaphor of the material world in which we live. Just like the rat trap offers cheese and pork to lure the rats, all the riches, the food, shelter are like baits. And the moment one touches this bait, the rat trap of the world closes in on him. One falls into a crazy rat race of the world. The story involves a peddler who is the protagonist of our story, who sells these rat traps of wire which are mostly begged or stolen by him. He is a peddler or a vagabond who tried to sustain his life by selling rat traps. One day, on one of his journeys, it occurs to him that the entire world is a rat trap and all the riches of the world are like baits to entrap the people. He is quite amused by this idea and he is satisfied that he will never fall into such a rat trap because he is deprived of all these things. One dark evening, as he was plodding along the road, he caught sight of a little grey cottage by the roadside. To ask shelter from that cottage owner. Usually, he was shooed away by the people, but this time, to his surprise, he got a very warm welcome from the host. The host not only offered shelter but food and tobacco, and also played the game of Majolas and shared with him the secret of earning 30 kroners which he had collected by selling milk. So he was quite generous even with his secrets. Yes, students, why do you think the crofter, that is, the cottage owner, might have shown that 30 kroners? He showed it physically to the rat trap seller. So the answer is evident in this line that the stranger must have seemed incredulous. That means that the rat trap seller might not have believed on the crofter's statement of having 30 kroners. That is why, to make him believe, he just takes out those 30 kroners from the pouch and shows him. Next morning, when they leave the house, the owner for milking his cow and the other man, that is the rat trap seller, went on his way. But the rat trap seller was lured and he came back half an hour later, stole the money, and decided to walk through the woods instead of taking a road so that he would not be caught. At first, the rat trap seller was quite happy that he had done such a smart thing of stealing those 30 kroners. But later on, he realized his mistake and he got sad and depressed and understood that he had been lured by a bait. That is, the bait is the 30 kroners, the currency of Sweden. He also was quite depressed and understood the reality when he loses his way in the forest. The forest was like a labyrinth, a maze, and He walked and walked for quite a long time but made no headway. He understood that he was trapped in a rat trap. Hungry, exhausted, and cold, he falls down on the ground with no hope. And when he falls on the ground, suddenly he heard the thumping of a hammer. He realized that there was some iron mill which was nearby, and he moved in that direction and reached the Ramso Iron Works. He took the permission from the people present there. He asked the permission of the master blacksmith, and the master blacksmith nodded haughtily. Haughtily means in an arrogant way, uh, and gave the consent without honoring him with a single word. That is, he didn't speak any word from his mouth. Later that night, when the owner of this Ramso iron mill came on a nightly round, the first thing he saw was this ragamuffin, this shabby, ragged person sleeping near the furnace. The iron master, that is the owner of this factory, didn't follow the way of the blacksmith who were haughty. Rather, this person, the iron master, went near him and took off his hat to get a better view of his face. That is, his face means the rat trap seller's face. When the iron master saw the face of the rat trap seller, he mistook him for his old regimental comrade Nils Olof. The peddler means the rat trap seller, also did not clarify that he was not the person who who the iron master was thinking he was. And why doesn't he clarify is basically he thought that he hoped that he would get some money from Iron Master. The Iron Master invited this rat trap seller to his manor house and wanted him to celebrate Christmas with his family and his family, that is, along with his daughter. The rat trap seller declined because he didn't want to throw himself into trouble. That is, the exact wordings in the lesson is it would be like throwing himself voluntarily into the lion's den. He had come to the iron mill just to have a shelter and sneak away as quietly and without being noticed as possible. The iron master insisted him, assuming that the rat trap seller might be feeling embarrassed because of his condition. The rat trap seller also didn't accept the iron master's invitation because he feared he might be detected of the burglary he had committed. So the iron master left that place and sent his daughter to convince this rat trap seller to come home, whom they thought the as Captain Neely's Olaf. But when the iron master's daughter Edla Wilmanson persuaded him to come along with her to their home, obviously the rat trap seller agreed. Students, why do you think he agreed to Edla Wilmanson's invitation? The reason is that she looked at the peddler so compassionately and invited him on the Christmas Eve in such a way that the tramp felt confidence in her. So he accepted her. Her sincerity and the friendly nature with which she begged, obviously, and the way she assured him that he could go freely whenever he wanted after Christmas Eve, that the peddler accepted the invitation. While Edla was convincing this rat-trap seller, whom they thought as uh, the father's comrade, she noticed that the person was quite afraid. She suspected that the man might have committed some crime or was escaping from the police. Though the next morning she also talked her heart out with her father, that she didn't think that there was anything about him to show that he had once been an educated man. That means Edla was not at all convinced that a captain from the army would have fall to such a sorry state of affairs. Her father assures her that after a bath and a change of clothes, he would emerge as a polished gentleman, as a captain. But on the contrary, when the tramp was given a bath and shave the next morning, the iron master realized his mistake. He found that the peddler is not his old comrade that he thought to be. The iron master was quite angry. He demanded an explanation and shouted at the rat trap seller. The rat trap seller justified that he never ever wanted to fool him and never ever wanted to come to his house, and it was they who had uh, convinced him to come home. At this point, the Iron Master told him to get out of the house. To this, Edla comes to the rescue of Peddler, and she asked her father to let him stay for the day and have a peace of mind. And she also convinces that it would be improper to turn out a man on a Christmas Eve. And Adla then led the person to the table and offered him food. But the rat trap seller couldn't understand the motive of Edla because he was never ever treated so very nicely by anybody. So he enjoyed his stay at the Wilmansons. He ate and slept as he had never eaten. He also thanked everybody and thanked Edla and for giving a present of the next morning when the guest, that is the rat trap seller, was asleep. The iron master and his daughter went off to the church. And there they learned that the old crofter had been robbed by a peddler, and they understood that it might be none other than their guest. And the iron master accuses his daughter of letting the thief stay at home. And the iron master thought that the tramp must have taken away his silver spoons and would have left with valuable things. When Edla and the Iron Master reached home, they learned that the tramp had rather gone and left Edla a package. Edla opened the package and found a small rat trap and three wrinkled 10 kroner notes and a letter which thanked Edla for treating him like a captain. And he asked her to give back the money to the old crofter, and he signed the letter as Captain Bonestall. And why does he sign the letter as Bonestall? He signed himself as Captain Bonestall because if he hadn't been raised to the captain, he wouldn't have escaped from the world's rat trap. The kind treatment from Edla, her understanding, and her compassion transformed this tramp into a good person. She had made him feel like a true captain, and he also wanted to show Edla that he was worth the treatment he had received.